Hello, I am Brother Kelly Hughes, Chaplain of the Arts. We are broadcasting live to tape from the Valiant Theatre in the heart of Winnipeg's greasy tenderloin. This is Kelly Hughes Live Slices here on UMFM 101.5, also on YouTube, and then little snippets all over the rest of social media. Thanks so much for stopping by. Thank you to my guest for stopping by, Dr. Jonas Watson of Grant Park Animal Hospital. How you doing?
I'm good. Than's for having me,
Great.
Kelly.
You got a new friend
I do. Yeah, we're
who
bonding.
is really sniffing that suspicious stain on your pants.
She's a sweetheart.
She is. We've had her for about 2 years, and she is probably, I think she's 8 or 9. She came from the country. She has we think that she has a pelvis, a cracked pelvis that didn't heal properly.
Oh,
That's what Dr. Meg thinks, and so she's got some mobility issues.
Yeah.
But she's on medication and she's been doing a lot better. But her story is tragic, but sort of not that uncommon. So I guess it was out somewhere around Steinbach, so Rural Animal Management Services or whatever, RAMS, picked her up, and she was fixed and she had a tattoo, so they contacted the people, and they said, oh, we moved to BC, we gave them to our neighbor, the farmer, and then they called him, and he was like, no, that's not my dog, that's a stray. And like, she is just absolutely the sweetest dog
I can tell.
in the whole world. And this, like who moves and doesn't take their dog with them,
Yeah.
which, I'm sure that you've heard it all too.
Yeah. But what a nice ending for her that she finally.
Yeah, no, and that's why, like, so my partner Andy and I have rescued or adopted or fostered over 300 animals,
Oh my gosh.
about 90% cats. The other 10% is dogs and a few rabbits and birds and stuff. But we always do old dogs because it's nice, for old dogs to have a nice kind of a landing place.
For sure.
But also, you know what they're going to do? People get puppies and, they're cute, right? But you don't know what they're going to do. Like an old dog, you know exactly what they're going to do.
Right.
They're going to sleep and they're going to try to steal your sandwich.
Right.
But they're not going to rip everything apart. They're not, so yeah, the one thing is you have, the dogs die more often, because they're old. I mean, we had one that we only, we had one that died this summer, and I think we had him for like less than 2 years, year and a half. But he was old and he had a good life at the end. Anyway, we don't really know what happened before. And then their lives are so much shorter than ours.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of saying goodbye.
Well, that takes a great deal of resilience to keep taking on those kinds of animals, but boy, they sure do need a cozy place to land late in life. So that's great. You're a real saint for doing that.
Well, I'm not a saint, but well, you're a saint too, because you've got your people up in Churchill right now, right?
Right now,
You're doing
that's right. Yeah, your veterinarian, Dr. Drain, Meg is up
Yeah.
there. She's avoiding polar bears and doing lots of surgery and appointments.
So how many people in Churchill, do you know?
I think there's about 800 people in Churchill, so less than 1,000.
And how many vets?
Well, no vets. We are the vets, the contract vets.
So
for Churchill.
no vets at all.
That's right.
Has there never been a vet there?
Never in Churchill. There historically has been one in Thompson, but
Yeah.
that's not Churchill. So yeah, if you've been up in Churchill, you either have to. Sometimes some of the dog sled team guys, the
Yeah.
mushers, they'll sort of help with this and that. Sometimes the doctor or a nurse will help
Yeah.
with this and that, but they're pretty limited with what they can do. We've been going to Churchill twice a year for about 10 or maybe 12 years.
Yeah.
And so we have a good relationship and are up there to do these community clinics with regularity.
And of course, my good friend is also your friend, Katie Powell,
Yeah.
and she does all kinds of fly-in stuff too, because there's lots of places that are smaller than that have no
Yeah.
vet, and of course, I mean uh, we've got a problem in Manitoba with dogs, too many dogs that are out running free, and
Yeah, and no
especially,
access to the
yeah,
care that
and
they
right,
need. I mean,
yes,
like the access to veterinary care is a big problem, and the cost of care for a lot of the people, especially people in these remote
yeah,
communities. They don't necessarily have the resources to be able to pay for the care that's needed. But also, it's proximity to vet clinics. I mean, unless vet clinics are nearby, which is usually not the case, then you're kind of stuck.
So this is my first big question about a big problem. Like, what's the answer to that?
Well, what is the answer? I mean, I think a larger scale version of what many of us have been doing, which is flying into these communities with some regularity, providing spay and neuter services, providing vaccination and deworming services, and doing other things that dogs and cats may require in these communities. That has to be paid for by somebody, and
Yeah,
maybe that's a combination of governments and these communities themselves, these indigenous communities themselves. Um, that I think is really the answer. Probably these these remote communities would not be able to sustain a full-time veterinarian there. So I think
yeah,
sort of flying in and flying out, or drive up and drive out type clinics are probably the answer. And there's more and more of that happening now.
yeah,
15 years ago, it just wasn't really
yeah,
happening much. Now you can see the Winnipeg Humane Society has their One Health program, and other smaller groups
yeah,
like Save a Dog Network and
yeah.
others are going and doing this kind of work. And a difference is being made. It's slow going, but it's something.
But we still don't value it politically, right? I mean, at the political level, at putting money into it. Because I mean, if you even look at like Winnipeg Animal Services is constantly underfunded,
Yeah.
and I know that because I've had uh, I've tried to get hold of them about stray dogs and stuff, and they're only driving around like certain hours. They've got kind of reduced hours, and that's just cutting. They've got this amount of money, so they
Yeah.
just cut hours. Um, and because we have a problem in the city too. Uh,
For sure. There's a problem. It's a big problem with cats and with dogs. I know Winnipeg Animal Services is trying to work towards having more regular veterinary services offered there. That their dream is probably to have an in-house veterinary clinic, and I'm trying to collaborate with them right now to
yeah.
help make that happen.
Is
Make a
it
big
is
difference.
it a little bit hard for them because they're sort of bureaucratic and at the
Yeah, I mean,
whims of the city? I mean, they're
they're at
not.
the whims of the Manitoba Veterinary Medical
Yeah,
Association, and then funding from the city. Yeah, all of those things. They need allies
yeah,
within the veterinary community, and then we need to have the MVMA, the Mandatory Vet
yeah,
Association, work collaboratively to make this happen,
yeah.
rather than look at ways for it to not happen.
Are you a former president?
I was the president of the Manitoba Veterinary
Yeah.
Medical Association. Yeah.
So what don't they like?
Well, they've got rules around sort of what counts as a remote clinic or a temporary clinic. There's stuff in their bylaws
Yeah,
that sort of will restrict what you can do and what you can't do and how frequently you can do it.
yeah,
So I think you just have to get pragmatic about it and say, like, listen, we need a clinic here. We need to be able to be doing in-house spaying and neutering, so we're not
yeah,
wasting time of officers driving
yeah,
back and forth between hospitals.
yeah,
You just have to look at, okay, here's what the problem is we're trying to solve. How do we revise bylaws to accommodate it?
yeah,
And it's not that hard, but there
yeah.
has to be kind of a will. The will is there on the part of Winnipeg Animal Services, and I think things are getting better at the MVMA in terms of accommodating this stuff. They used to be really, really strict about what was and what wasn't allowed, and now they're kind of,
Do you need to sit here, honey? Are
yeah,
you
wherever you want
uncomfortable?
to
Come
go,
here.
girl.
Do you need to put your feet here? Oh no, you want to face him. Okay, come here. Here you come. Sit here. Sit
They
here.
have, there used to be more stringent rules around what could be done, including in remote communities, but they've let up on a lot of that, which is the reason why we're seeing more and more of this drive up, fly in type stuff work being done than we did like 10 or 12 or 15 years ago.
I don't know if she was doing this right by your mic, but I'm gonna have just dog panting.
Oh,
Come
I
on, you
don't
lie
know
down.
either. She's very cuddly. I
Lie
mean,
down,
I
honey.
hope the audio is
Um,
okay.
because I mean, we're like, is it, do we have an emergency? Is it an
Well, some
emergency?
people call it an emergency. I mean, it's a chronic big problem. I mean, yeah, I mean, there are dogs that freeze to death, puppies that freeze to death, people and
There we
children
go.
that get bitten, especially in remote communities. There's an overpopulation
Yeah,
problem. The pound always has too many dogs. The Humane Society always
yeah.
has too many dogs. So, yeah, I mean, you could call it an emergency.
And like Rams is, those they're always underfunded
Yeah,
too. I know that, and I've seen, just with some of the, I've helped Katie at Save a Dog, and then we've worked a lot with Manitoba Great Pyrenees Rescue. We've worked a little bit with Forever Friends. They're both rural, so I've had a little bit of dealings with Rams, and like,
it's
I mean,
worse for them.
it's bad, and it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, the conditions are bad. The funding is almost nothing, and I mean, some of them, like, they can they can hold on to a dog for a week, and if they can't find the owner, and if they can't find a rescue that will take the dog, then that's it.
I know.
And they I mean, sometimes they're actually shooting the dog depending on where they are.
Yeah.
It's very and of course uh, we have these dog shoots that happen um, in more remote communities, and we need to be upstream on this whole thing more. But I feel like there's no political points for it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's who is gonna take it and champion it and say, hey, I'm gonna be the animal welfare guy or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to me, like the thing that really gets me down is when I go to some of these remote communities and I see the accommodations that the people have to live with, or like sometimes during certain crises in the summer, there's no
Yeah,
running water, or the infrastructure sucks, or
yeah,
a street sign is a laminated paper stuck to a tree branch or something. So
yeah,
like, I start to wonder, like, if there's no will to really help the people that
yeah,
live here, like, God help the animals. I mean, like, they're not even ensuring that a good quality of life is guaranteed to the people in these remote communities. So it's yeah, we just have to keep
yeah,
plugging away. Solving this animal problem in far-flung areas is becoming something that we're becoming more conscientious about, and the
yeah.
provincial government is ponying up a little bit more money towards. So we're moving in the right direction, but it's slow going. For people that really want to see big changes happen, it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and it's kind of exhausting. And like, some people that run these rescue groups and work in this world, they're like hanging on by a thread.
Oh, and the people, the people that are doing the rescue work, A, they're all nuts, and B, I mean, everybody's just worn the fuck out because there's like this many people doing this much stuff, and I guess I just feel like, I guess I just feel like there's 800,000 people in Winnipeg or whatever, and there's like 80 people doing all the stuff. And I just feel like it's all of our problem, because I feel like we, okay, so you know this, but I'm just gonna say it again. Like, dogs and cats both evolved up along with us as we were sitting around the fire, and needed we needed something from each other for, I don't remember, I don't know how many thousands of years, 10, 40,000 or something.
Yeah, for dogs,
Cats are
probably.
cats are less, because they were always a little bit more at the edge of the fire, eating mice and whatever. But so we brought them along with us, and and uh, and then we have done all this. I mean, we've intentionally bred them and come up with these breeds, and done all this stuff, and I mean, but uh, they can't live in the wild. It's not like most of the animals at the zoo. If you sent them back where they were from, they don't need us. But these animals can't live in the wild, and I feel like we don't your point is well taken about how we don't even seem to care about other people who are living in very unacceptable conditions, which is a whole other
Yeah.
discussion. But I just feel like, with the animals, I feel like uh, it's all of our problem, and so I don't. It frustrates me. Uh, it frustrates me that there are just like, this many people, and I've seen, we've been doing it for 10 years or whatever, and I've seen people drop out of it because they're just it's too much, uh, it's it's too stressful. I mean, um, it just gets to be too much, and so, but I feel like there's all these, even if everybody else just did a little tiny bit of something, and you have lots of different clients, so you're not going to maybe want to uh, jump on the people too much who have purebred dogs and whatever. But it's the thing that drives me bananas, because there are so many animals that need homes, and people are always like, oh well, I want to train a dog the way I want it to be trained, and I don't want to, people are like, I don't want to use dog, basically. Look at this dog. I mean, so it just frustrates me that and even the things that people say when I don't know, when you say you've got a rescue dog, or or you sort of that comes up. I mean, uh, a res dog, the racist things that you hear, kind of that casual racism or whatever, about res dogs, and, people don't treat their animals properly, and yada, 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 yada. And it's a whole complicated, nuanced thing, but, you can see the wheels turning. Um, but actually, most of our dogs have either come from the city or from around Steinbach.
Uh-huh.
And I've heard, we've had lots of, I mean, even one dog that we were fostering, Rams, called the guy, they found the guy, and he came in and they said, okay, well, that's $150 to get your dog back, because that was the fine or the fee or whatever. And the guy just looked at the dog and said, sorry, bud. And he left his dog there.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just like story after story after
Yeah.
story, and we fostered that dog, and he went off and found a nice home, and that was, and that was good. But I just like, what's wrong with us,
Listen, in my job, I get some opportunities to meet some wonderful, great people, great pet owners, and just great human beings. But as often as I see that, I see the absolute worst in people. And so it's hard to be really upbeat about the way people collectively treat animals. I know the common thinking is that everybody calls themselves an animal lover,
Yeah.
but we don't treat most animals in our purview as though we love them, whether that's chickens, mice, dogs, horses. We fail animals regularly as a society, even though individually we like to think that really most of us, what we really are, we call ourselves animal lovers, but mostly we are a lover of our own dog.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
Because day to day we turn a blind eye to atrocities that are ongoing and have become normalized and are just part of society. And it's a bummer. It's a
Yeah.
bummer.
Well, and you're not even, I mean, and there's lots of, you're saying the people that you're seeing, and there's lots of people you don't see. Like, we had a bulldog cross a couple of years ago, Jesse, who, his people, they lived outside of Ile-des-Chênes or somewhere. His people never took him to the vet, ever. I mean, I think he was fixed, but then they just never took him to the vet. And so he had his nails were all curled around. He could hardly walk. He had his eyes were all infected. His ears, his ears were like really messed up, and he had to have the surgery because he had like a hematoma or whatever. And I kind of think he was deaf, and I kind of wonder if all his ear problems had contributed to that. But they just never took him to the vet. They fed him, and he had a place corner to sleep or whatever, but they just didn't take him to the vet because they were like, well, I mean, which is, I don't know.
It can be complicated, access to care. There can be a lot of reasons why people aren't getting the care for their pets. So it can be.
These people were neighbors of somebody that was working with the rescue I was working with. They had enough money to take the dog to the vet, but and she actually had to talk them into. They had 2 dogs, and she actually talked them into giving up one dog and then the other dog once they had gotten, because she could see they weren't being taken care of, and they were just they were just too stubborn right now. But I understand what you're saying. Like right now, there's somebody in my sphere, not in my family, but there's a person who's not well, who is who nobody's really been in her house. Now she's in the hospital, and her brother she's older, and her brother is going in and trying to help and whatever. And she's she's got 3 dogs. She had roosters in the house. She had, I don't know what else it is. There was kind of a laundry list of things. One of the dogs, was described to me as an outdoor dog, so probably heartworm. And I mean, and I think she's a hoarder with stuff too.
Yeah.
But I think, probably like, she probably does love animals, and she probably, is, doing her best. But this kind of gets like, tell me, so one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was because of this thing. This is now, a couple of weeks ago. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is a couple of weeks ago. If you're watching it listening to it on the radio, it was a few weeks ago. But there was a bird situation. Tell me about that.
Well, Winnipeg Police Service attended to a home where there was a sort of a care call type check-in, and the person that lived there was deceased, and they had many, many birds, maybe almost 80 or 100 birds in there. She had been dead for probably 4 days or so, and so the birds had no food, no water.
They didn't start to eat her.
They were all in their cages.
Okay.
But they had no access to food, and they were in cages that were really inappropriate for them. By the time Animal Services was called to attend to the home and seize all these animals, the animals, many were dead already, dozens were dead, and some were actively dying as we were tending to them that Wednesday evening that we showed up at the pound. And this was a person who kept birds, and she probably loved birds and probably cared about these pets at one time. And clearly, we don't know anything about her, but what tends to happen is people collect, and they sort of get more and more, and they are not always cognizant of when they become overwhelmed and unable to provide.
And often in these situations, there's mental health aspect to it.
For sure. And so the animals suffer. The animals are the ones that suffer. In this instance, the woman is deceased, and the animals they're all being treated, and they're just right now starting to be adopted out to new homes. Yeah. But in some instances where a person is discovered having these animals, there's a lot of social services that get involved to help these people. They usually don't want to relinquish any of the animals. We usually have to let them keep some number of animals just because just out of sort of empathy towards them, but they need a lot of help. They need very specific psychological help to prevent it from happening again. And then the animals go on to need a lot of special individualized care. In this instance, many of these birds are kind of, now that they've been tended to, are doing okay, but there are several at my hospital right now that we're still working on.
How many do you have over at your place?
We probably have about a dozen, and that includes finches, canaries, and budgies. Some of them have medical problems. Some of them have behavioral problems. We are trying to get them better and get them to a good place. But most of the birds just needed beak trims and nail trims and some food. They were all very, very skinny. And the worst part was, like, many of the bird species that were there who really like to bond with other birds, like lovebirds, would be kept in these little wire cages alone. Most of those lovebirds were alone, and the wire cage is maybe the size of an iPad all around. So it's just, and then with no food and water.
Yeah.
So it was gut wrenching. It was really bad, and I was glad that the 43 that we attended to have lived and all lived. By the time myself and staff from the hospital got there, everybody was okay, and we were able to help them all. And it's been a couple of weeks now.
And now, did they go out for the ones that went out for adoption? Did they go through like Humane Society?
No, the animal services.
Does
is
animal
adopting them.
services do birds?
Not really, but in this instance, they had them all.
Because they, like, when they, and people maybe don't know this, but when they get cats, they just send them to Humane
Yes,
Society.
that's the arrangement that they have with the city.
Yeah,
that they don't look after.
Yeah, they pay Humane Society to take all the cats.
But if weird animals, whatever they might be, show up on their doorstep, they kind of have to tend to them, and they are accustomed to tending to small numbers of this or that, whatever species might show up. But to have 43 or 50 birds show up on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m. when there's like 4 women working there and nobody else, and they have no real idea what to do. Obviously, that is an overwhelming situation. We were happy to participate in this whole process. It's been a nice collaboration with them, and I really have to give like major kudos to all the staff at Winnipeg Animal Services who've been great in helping to rehabilitate these birds. They're amazing.
And I found the staff to be great. We've adopted one dog from there, and that was Big Cookie, who's gone now. And a few years ago, they had a dog. So the bylaw that they passed a couple of years ago, where they could prevent someone, the city could prevent someone from, is it from owning a dog or just any pet, or you must know?
Well, they have a rule in place that's a restriction on these pit bull, so-called pit bull, but then they've got this dangerous dog designation. So if a dog is...
But they can actually then say you can't own another dog.
Well, there are limits on the number of dogs you can own, sure.
So this is about 3 years ago.
There was a revision of the responsible pet ownership bylaw.
And they told me that they had taken this dog away from, he was a big peer who had not been socialized. They had taken him away from somebody, and they didn't want to give me, details, obviously. But they asked MGPR to take him because they were concerned that somebody in this guy's family would come and would adopt the dog and then give it back to him, because their rescues are really good at vetting owners for dogs, and animal services is stretched, and they're happy to, they need to get the animals out of there, and they're not as thorough about that, and I know that. So it would have been more difficult for them to figure that out. So they said, well, can you take, MGPR, can you take this dog just to try to find a home for this dog? And MGPR said, well, can anybody do this? And I said, okay, well, we'll do this. What ended up happening was the dog was so, we really tried, and the dog was so unsocialized that he ended up like, he bit like 3 people. We shuffled him around. We tried to find him new. You know what I mean? We were hiding the fact that he had bit, you know what I mean? We were just, because we knew that it was going to be the end of the line for this dog if we couldn't find a situation that was where he could kind of get along and where he could just be. But he just, and I'm not really a dog guy naturally. I'm a cat guy. I love cats and I love kittens. Like kittens, they're cute, and it doesn't matter what you do. They're going to grow up and they're going to do whatever they want. They're either, you know what I mean?
Yes.
They're going to want to sit on your face all the time, or they're going to hate you.
Yeah.
It does not matter. Dogs, it matters what you do, because, they need to be, they're different. They need to be trained, and they need to be socialized and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not naturally a dog guy, but I'd never I was afraid of this dog. Sometimes he would just be like the nicest dog, and then he would just turn, and it wasn't his fault. It was just, the way that, and like I say, I don't know what the situation was. I think maybe he was like guarding a yard or something. I think he might have been sort of a junkyard dog. Anyway, sadly, he did end up having to be euthanized because we could not do anything for him. It was very, very, very sad. But I talked to Animal Services later, and they went back to check on this guy who was not supposed to have a dog, and he had another dog.
Aye.
And they seized that dog.
Yeah.
So I mean, the city can make bylaws. I mean, right now we have little signs that say you're not allowed to park, you're not allowed to camp 50 meters from a park and whatever, because we had 8 tents in the park all summer and 2 fires. And I mean, this again is a problem of, these are people that don't have anywhere to live, is problem A. But then problem B is they're living in the car, and then things are in the park and things are going on fire. But there's a new city bylaw where you can't park near you can't camp near a park, and they've got these little signs up that are like little real estate signs on coroplast stuck in the ground. Is that going to keep people out? I don't know. But I mean, you can make bylaws. I guess my point is, you can make bylaws, but then they still have to be enforced. And if there's no money in enforcement, stuff is just going to keep happening. Like, what do you think could have gone better in this case with the birds? Like, I mean, do you think was there a path for that not to end up that way?
I mean, I think when people have mass numbers of animals in a home, between the smell and the sound and just casual observation, it seems to me that neighbors probably have some awareness. And so if neighbors have some awareness and there are rules in place that we all understand, they can at least have something to hang their hat on when they call Animal Services or whoever to say, hey, listen, I think there might be a problem next door. But people have to, when they see something, say something.
Yeah.
And I just think it is useful to have some like, you're allowed to have maybe 5 dogs or 6 dogs in the city, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we prevent people from having 20 dogs in the city. But sometimes people do have like 70 dogs in the city. And then there's an intervention, the dogs are removed, and then they keep going back to the house to make sure that the person doesn't have it. That's what happened in the Fort Richmond case last year. They go and they check, but animal hoarders do have an uncanny ability to accrue lots of animals, keep it all under wraps, and kind of keep going until something finally slips.
Well, and part of that is often those people are just regular hoarders too.
Yes.
So there's quite a bit of shame in that, and so people like, I've one of the things that I do for money is move people, but I've done lots of house clear outs and estates and different things like that. And I mean, I've been in houses, where people, have said to me, like, you're the only person that's been in my house in 2 years. One woman whose son was a hoarder and lived in her basement. So she wasn't actually the hoarder, but he lived in the basement, and then he had some health problems and he died. And then we had to just completely empty the basement. But took her a while to get there, and she was obviously distraught from her son dying. So just like, she didn't want anybody to be in the house because it was shameful. And you wouldn't have known it was, she lived in a fourplex that probably wasn't like cheap, and you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
She didn't have the animals, but I just mean you never know what's going on inside somebody's house, and if it's something that somebody is sort of ashamed of, then they're gonna not let anybody in. Was the bird person, was that an area where you think like the neighbors should have known or done something, or was it more like renters that mind their own business, or what do you think?
I think that it might be easier to conceal birds because you can fit so many small birds into an area. It would be harder to conceal 100 dogs because dogs are barking and want to go outside and that sort of thing. But it is conceivable that someone may have had some suspicions about the number of birds, because birds are vocal. Yeah, I think we don't know a lot about it,
No.
and but for sure, based on the sizes of some of the cages and just the total lack of enrichment in some of these cages, clearly these birds were not having their needs met for some time. It was not just a matter of they were starving because this woman had died. She was not adequately caring for these birds for some period of time, and she had far too many to look for one person to look after.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also probably nobody, she had nobody, nobody was coming in the house because she wasn't letting anybody in the house. So
Who knows? Who
nobody could have
knows?
helped,
Yeah,
even if, um, uh, and I mean, I've even seen rescues like that,
absolutely.
you know.
Animal
Um,
hoarding is not something that is unique to a certain type of a person. There are veterinarians that have been discovered as animal hoarders. There are law enforcement people that have discovered, like lots of people can slide down this slippery
yeah.
slope. It's not necessarily some crazy older woman with a bunch of birds. Animal hoarders come in all different shapes and sizes, and it's a mental disorder. It's a unique mental disorder, animal
Yeah.
hoarding in the DSM. Like it is
Really?
its
Yeah.
own thing. It is
Yeah.
discrete from object hoarding. It is its own
Yeah.
thing, and it requires very specialized and nuanced counseling to get to help people overcome it.
Have you ever seen an animal hoarder that wasn't a thing hoarder? Or is it
Um,
usually,
I sometimes that is the case,
yeah,
but I mean usually while they may not be hoarding objects, their house is often
yeah,
a shambles. I mean, I was talking to animal services personnel the other day, and they talked about a scene that they attended. It was a cat hoarding situation. Lots of very unwell cats by the
yeah,
dozens, and as they were walking through the refuse in the house, they would put a foot down, and mice would just come, just erupt from all the
oh,
debris that was there. So whether they have too many objects or they don't, the whole place
yeah.
becomes almost condemnable.
And I guess too, if more of the animals were getting fixed in general, then this would be less of a, you know, less of a problem. Like especially with the cats and the dogs.
Yes.
The cats. I mean, uh, people let their female cats.
Yeah.
Well, not the male ones too, but I mean the female cats are running around and having a litter every you know 2 months or whatever. Like we had. Well, I don't know if I want to tell this story, but um, uh, we've had lots of pregnant cats. We had one who had her kittens underneath a 4x8 sheet of plywood that was leaning against the side of the house. Um, and like those cats all belong, she belonged to somebody. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? She wasn't feral.
Yeah.
She belonged to somebody who just let her run around and then she got pregnant. And then there's a bunch of other cats. And it's like, we have more, unfortunately, there are more cats and dogs than there are homes for them, I think.
Yeah. And I think, like, while I don't always totally understand the psychology of people involved, like, I have tried many times with certain individuals to try to avail our veterinary services, like to the extent that it's like, if you bring me the cat, I will spay this cat for free. You're lamenting to me
Yeah.
that it's a hardship having the
Yeah.
cat and kittens all the time. Bring me the cat,
Yeah.
we'll do it. And then we'll schedule an appointment, then they
Yeah.
just no show. You have to virtually go.
Yeah.
You have to do everything
Yeah.
for some people to get it done. And that part can be kind of frustrating because we don't necessarily have the resources to do all of that.
Do you think, especially with cats, like people, uh, a lot of people think that cats need to go outside, and more so kind of older people, I think, because how long has that been the city bylaw that no outdoor cats?
Quite a while, yeah.
15 years.
Yeah, or longer maybe, yeah.
But there's lots of people that are like, well,
Yeah.
and we've had all kinds of animals through here. Like I said, I built a catio that's just a cage that's got a little door through the window and whatever. And if they want to go outside, they can go in the catio. And none of them want to go outside.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? They actually just kind of want to smell and see what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
None of them are making a dash for the door.
Yeah.
So I don't actually, I know some cats, it's a little bit hard to keep them inside.
Yeah.
I get that. But I think people think more often than is the reality that they need to, that the cat needs to go out.
Well,
I
first and
think,
foremost, it's illegal, like you say,
yeah,
to let a cat outside in the city of Winnipeg. You're not allowed to let a cat
yeah,
outside in the city of Winnipeg, but be that as it may, some people do. Um, and the truth is, there are some benefits to being an outdoor cat. There are some pros to having an outdoor active lifestyle, and there's some downside to being a sedentary cat
yeah,
inside an apartment that never really sees the light of
yeah,
day. But clearly, it is far more safe to be an indoor
yeah.
cat than to be an outdoor cat.
Well, and two things with the sedentary thing, you should have two cats.
Right.
They can entertain each
Right.
other because people think cats are solitary, and that's not. Whoa, you okay, honey? You okay, baby? Okay, she's
So
going.
that's good. Yeah, she's ready to get out of here.
Come here. She perched like a bird as long as she could. Come here, baby. Come here. You come sit on the ground. I won't make you come back up here. Okay, she's gonna go find a couch. Uh, she's gone to go sit on a couch. Um, yeah, there she is. Um, so yeah, I think that people think the cats are solitary, and I don't. I know from experience that's not right. And then people shouldn't be feeding their cats dry food
Yeah.
because it's just they're. I'm telling you. I know I'm not telling you
No,
this.
but that's
I'm
great
telling
that
you
you're
people
saying
this
that. That's great that you're
because
sharing that.
I'll point myself to the camera. Cats are obligate carnivores,
Absolutely.
which means that in nature, like they might get something from if they eat a mouse and they eat the guts, they might get whatever the mouse is eaten for certain nutrients or whatever. They might eat a bit of grass if they want to throw up or whatever. But I mean, they're not like dogs. Like dogs can eat anything, and so all that dry food is all full of brewer's rice and like whatever. It's all full of stuff because it's dry and they have to bulk it up
Yeah.
and they can't metabolize it.
It's high in carbohydrate, and it definitely leads to type 2 diabetes in cats. And people tend to feed it in a really kind of laissez-faire way. They are not portioning out
Yeah.
little. There's a bowl. It's
Yeah.
perpetually full. The cats just belly up to the bar all the time,
Yeah.
and it becomes recreational eating.
Yeah.
And I say this to people all the time. If cat owners in a society were all to switch away to pate-style canned food and away from the dry stuff, it would change the landscape of health conditions that veterinarians treated cats for. Absolutely
Yeah.
change the kinds of diseases we diagnosed.
Yeah. We for the last couple of years we've been feeding the cats and the dogs raw food. There's a company in Oakbank or somewhere perfectly raw, and they make these bricks, and they're things that are made out of stuff that's coming off the human sort of food, whatever. Like it's ground up turkey back
Yeah.
and whatever, all that stuff that they're not using at Schneider's or whatever. And honestly, like we free feed them, not the dogs, but the cats we free feed them, and the only ones that are fat were the ones that were fat when they got here. Like I mean, it's just kind of bulky. We have a couple that didn't get fixed until later, and they've got that kind of the boys. They've got that kind of testosterone thing, but it's more filling, and you can see. I mean, if you look at their poops, are like this
Yeah.
because they're metabolizing everything because it's not a bunch of carbs and a bunch of junk and a bunch of but also like we've had the occasional foster that doesn't like it and will just eat wet food, but yeah, never ever dry because it's so bad. And even just crystals, crystals is one
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
honestly if there was no more dry food, wouldn't that be the end of crystals? Probably.
We hardly see crystals anymore where I am. I practice in an area where there's sort of a mixed kinds of populations. But when we see blocked cats, They do. The history is invariably that dry food makes up a majority of their diet. But yeah, the more canned food cats are eating, the less we think about urinary crystals and obstructions.
Something that I'm interested in is so a lot of the a lot of the animal hospitals have been bought up by corporations.
Yes.
Like, and this is the same thing that happened with bakeries and with funeral homes. And so you'll see the name and you still think, oh, this is, Bardell or whatever, but it's
Yeah.
owned by some big, huge
Yeah.
company. And that has been happening with vets for how long?
Last 10 years, maybe.
So, I mean, I don't really understand that. Is it just that corporations swallow everything up because that's the world that we live in? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think venture capitalists look at industries where there's a potential to make money, and dentists and physiotherapists and most recently veterinarians look like places where money can be made. The excuse that's always given is that younger, newer generation veterinarians don't want to buy the practice, and so the boomer owners are left with no choice but to sell to the corporation.
Okay.
I don't think that's true at all, but that is kind of the line that is given. I mean, the reason that we opened our hospital, Grant Park Animal Hospital, was in part response to the fact that we were going nowhere, myself and my partners. There was no future for us at the practices we were at. There was
Yeah.
no hope for ownership where I was previously, and
Yeah.
our only choice was to open our own hospital. But it was the best decision we could possibly have made.
And you don't need to name them, but the places that you were at, are they all bought up now by corporate?
They were already bought up.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they were already bought up. I would say
Yeah.
half of the practices in the city of Winnipeg and outside the city
Yeah.
are corporate owned, and there are probably about 2 or 3 major players in that scene.
And I mean, how, like, that's not getting anybody better care.
It's not necessarily getting worse care, but the priorities, I think, are different. And I mean, you can listen to these stories. It's not hard to find. I think what's happening now, the public is becoming aware of this,
Yeah.
and either just philosophically they don't like it, or they've started to have experiences where, and one of the complaints that you sometimes hear is that they just keep jacking up the prices. And it's never been our priority, myself and my partners, to be looking to fleece people or just, I mean, we raise prices every year, but we're really trying to not appease board of directors. We are just trying to find ways to work within
Yeah.
people's budgets to get animals healthy. That is it. It's the only reason we became veterinarians, is to try to make animals healthy. And it's not about finding ways of every year boosting this up by this percent or whatever. So the autonomy is great. I have not looked back, and the reception to being a locally owned, non-corporate practice from the public has been very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've been to a lot of vets, and because we've done a lot of rescue work, we've gone to a lot of the vets that the rescues use, and sometimes it's not that good. Sometimes, and also I think sometimes these places are using rescues to kind of pad their
I think that's true.
pad the books.
Absolutely.
So you're not getting good you're not getting good care, you're not getting good service. I mean, during the pandemic, when nobody could go in, they continued that. Some of those places continued that with even now if you're with a rescue, they won't let you come in. They'll just take the animal. You have to wait. And I mean, if you've been fostering the animal, sometimes it's very useful for you to go in and to have the discussion about, because you're taking care of it's not your pet, but you're taking care of this animal.
Being a veterinarian is very much like being a pediatrician. Can you imagine the pediatric office telling the mom she's got to stay, or the dad, he's got to sit out here. We'll just take the kid in. You just wait in the car. Like, it just doesn't fly. That is not the way you build relationships.
Yeah.
And our profession is all about building long-standing, decades-long relationships.
How old were you when you knew you didn't want to be a pediatrician?
I'm not. The longer I do this job, the more I realize all the other things I also could have done. Until you become a veterinarian, you don't realize, oh, I guess I was able to do that, and maybe I could have done this, that, and the other too.
Well, when did you think you wanted to be a vet?
At a young age, I was always very interested in animals, and it was sort of a profession that gets thrust upon a kid who who really likes animals and has pets and that sort of thing. But as I got older, I had other interests in other things. My first degree was a Bachelor of Arts degree with a film studies major, so I kind of am into some other stuff too.
Yeah.
But when it became clear in my early 20s that I needed like
That you weren't going to be the next great director.
well, I never gave it a chance, but yeah, I just kind of thought, well, I'll try to do the prerequisites and see what happens. Then lo and behold, I did the prerequisites and got accepted to vet school. And only after I became a vet did I sort of figure out how am I going to put this lab coat on and make this profession work for me. And so I had to find the areas that were meaningful to me, and we've been talking about them today, and to make veterinary medicine be the career that was that I was meant to do.
It's terrible to do something if your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
And I've seen, I mean, everybody everywhere, but I've certainly seen lots of vets that I can tell, are just not.
Well, I think some people, this is the problem with knowing you wanted to be a vet at age 5. 5-year-olds aren't great at making great decisions for the long term. So, you get into it with a certain sense of what you're getting into, but you don't actually realize what you're into until you're well into it. And it can be a very trying, taxing profession. We've got a lot of mental health problems, a lot of suicide problems in this profession.
Right.
And
I guess that doesn't surprise me.
No, it's not shocking. I think we've got something like 3 or 4 times the suicide rate of the general public.
Wow.
It's just like you can imagine all the ways in which veterinary medicine can be a taxing long-term career for people.
When I was 5, I didn't want to be a vet, but I decided I was going to have a pet cemetery. And we had a place out at Delta Beach. And so I decided, the easiest place for me to dig was out front on the beach. And so I couldn't really find anything dead except for the fish that had washed up.
Right.
So I dug a bunch of holes. I dug a bunch of holes and buried a bunch of dead fish in front of the house.
Did they stay buried?
They stayed buried, and they started to smell. And I think somebody made me dig them back up again. I also did I found some little kind of roadkill that I tried to cremate, but I got in trouble for using matches because I was 5. Although you could go down to the store and give them a penny, and they would give you matches because it was 1975. I mean, I could have bought cigarettes probably, right?
Probably.
So what do you do then that's not, we just got a couple more minutes. What do you do that's not animal stuff, not vet stuff? You play in an AC/DC cover band?
No,
do you?
the truth of the matter is my job, especially since I'm one of the owners of the hospital, it is so all-encompassing.
Yeah.
I can't even pop into that building without just being sucked into the vortex. I might go there planning to be there for 5 minutes, and I get thrown out the pipeline like 3 hours later. So I don't have that much spare time, but in the time that I have, I spend it with my family. Like I said, I'm a big film guy, so when I get a chance to go and catch a matinee or just watch a movie at home, that is pleasure for me. Reading is pleasure for me. There's so many things that I still want to catch up on doing.
Yeah.
If I name for you some of the television series I've not streamed yet, you wouldn't believe it. There's a lot of stuff I want to catch up on. I just don't have that much bandwidth.
I know, I believe it, and I understand it. I mean, I've, not at this point in my life, but when I had my own business, I had a bookstore and a restaurant. We had a 100-seat theater. We had writer studios. We were doing 300 events a year. I was working 100 hours a week, and so I get that. I mean, you go home and you do whatever, and then you get up and you just do it all over again. And it's very rewarding. I mean, there's a lot of stress when things aren't going right, but when things are going well and when things are clicking along, there's no better feeling because you're making a difference. You're doing something that people care about. People see on the street and say, "Hey, Dr. Watson, my pet is." Well, actually, our Missy, who we brought in, who was a little fluffy black and white cat. She was about 4 pounds when we brought her in, and you put her on B12 shots and some food, but the food was fine. But the B12 shots were absolutely the answer, and she's about 6 pounds now, and she's probably 12, and she's full of, you know, piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was, you know, like 4 pounds is small for a cat.
Yeah.
That's, you know, so I mean, you know, you're a person that people are happy to see.
Well, you know, those kinds of stories, making a difference for people's pets, and people's pets really are family members. You know, it's very meaningful and important to people that their sick animal get better. Being able to play a role or being able to make a difference for families like that, it is incredibly rewarding. It's why we keep doing this work. It sustains us in this profession.
So you're a film guy. What's a film that you think that I haven't seen that I should see?
Well, I think you've probably seen this, but one of my favorites was one of the ones that we studied at the U of M when I was an undergrad there, and I'm sure you have seen it, but Martin Scorsese's After Hours from the mid-'80s with Griffin Dunn.
You know, if I have, it's been a long time.
It's worth a rewatch.
Yeah.
We were assigned a shot-by-shot analysis of this movie, and I think by doing that exercise in the late '90s, it just changed the way that I watch movies and appreciate movies. So for me, that is a favorite among many others.
Well, you know what? We've got a big screen here that nobody else can see, but it's about the same size as the Cinematheque screen.
Okay.
And every once in a while we have some people over and we'll throw a movie up. So we'll do. Usually it's something by John Carpenter.
Oh yes.
Because he's I have love in my heart for John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And also I love that he did his last movie in about 2000 or something, and it got terrible reviews, and he was so mad he just stopped making movies.
Oh.
But he still does music for other people's movies, and he does stuff, and he's active. But he was just pissed off, and he just stopped making movies.
Yeah.
Which is funny. And most of his movies, I mean, you know, there's one or two duds in there. Most of them are pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. And thank you very much for stopping by. This has been Kelly Hughes Live. Slices on 101.5 UMFM and also YouTube. Thank you so much, and thank you to my guest, Dr. Jonas Watson. Art will save us all. Talk to you again.